Hardware problems can be caused by hardware or software disguised as a hardware issue. Here are some common tools you can use to resolve many issues that users will call about. I'm in a Windows 11 computer and I'm going to right click on the Start button and I'm going to choose Task Manager. This is one of the first places I go on a user's computer or even my own computer when they call to complain that there's slowness on their computer. So if we take a look at the processes at the top, you can see the CPU, memory, disk, and network usage. If any of these are pegged at 100%, then what you want to do is you want to click on that particular column. So I'll click on memory, for instance, and it will show me what service is using most of my resources for that particular object, such as memory, which is RAM. And if I'd like, I can right click on that and choose to end the task and see if that resolves the issue. Of course, I'll want to find out what that particular executable is so I can go in and research and find out whether it should be running at that high amount. I can also go into performance, and this will give me a graph view of lots of different things, such as CPU usage, memory, hard drives, as well as network, like you see here. And this graphical view sometimes is easier for some people to take a look at and decide whether or not there's a bottleneck in a certain area. You can go to where it says details or services, and here you get an idea of all the different things that are running on your computer. This is every single executable that's running. And over here are services. Services are going to run whether you're running a program or not. So for instance, if I'm running Microsoft Word, it will show up in details, but not services. However, if I have some services that start up with the computer, it also has a related executable to it. So I could go to any one of these services. For instance, I'll go to the audio service and right click and choose Go to Details. And it tells me the executable that's running my audio service. And here it is right here. So if that service gets stuck or it stops and I can't start it, then you can just right click and choose to end that task. And then you can go ahead and start the service and it'll restart that executable. I'm going to go back to performance and you'll see at the bottom something called resource monitor. You can also just go to search and type resource monitor as well. If I click on resource monitor, it gives me a different type of detail about what's going on in my computer. So for instance, you see the CPU. Each one of these different executables can be tied to the amount of CPU that those executables are using. So I can go and look off to the right and see what these three executables are using on my computer at this moment. And you can see it gets updated. And how this helps is if software is causing a problem to cause your CPU to spike and you see your computer running slowly, you may think that the hardware is having a problem. But in reality, it could be malware or it could be an application that's just not running properly. You might also find that you just need more RAM or more hard disk space, something like that. Here, I'll click on memory, for instance. And if all my memory is being used, then it's possible I just need more memory. Or if I see a lot of hard faults per second, then I can go ahead and say my RAM is probably bad. I need to replace it. And you can do similar tasks under disk as well as network. When I uncheck just those three, you can see now all the different disk and network pieces all appear in my screen. Another tool that I use a lot when I'm supporting clients is going to be computer management. So I'll go to search and type in computer management. And I'll open that up. You can also run as administrator. If you're not the administrator on the user's computer, it'll prompt you for administrator credentials. And running as administrator gives you some additional rights, some things that you can't do as a regular user, such as make changes. You can do as the administrator. Now, if you take a look, there's lots of different things here. There's a task scheduler, and that's going to show me what tasks are going to be running and when they'll be running and who they're running as. It's possible my bottleneck could be because too many tasks are running at the same time. So here you can see the tasks and when they are running. And if I do see too many tasks running at the same time, I can just go in and edit those to run at different times. Here's my event viewer. This is a super useful area. I can go in and take a look at applications, see if any applications are failing. I can go into the system area. The system will tell me if any pieces of software or hardware are having issues. And all these different system tools can be opened up individually, but I find it nice to be able to open them in computer management because I can view them all at once. Now I can see all my application events. If you see just the I information, that's just information only. It doesn't mean that there's any problem going on. What you'll be looking for are the yellows or the reds. Those are the warnings and the critical issues that will need to be looked at. And if you click on System, then you'll see a whole different set of events that happened here. Here we can see a warning that a policy did not work as expected. So you can do some research on that. Here's a red error that's going on where I had a problem. You can see I had a timeout issue. And so I'd want to look up that by going down to where it says the event ID at the bottom. And I can copy the general information that you see here, paste it into a search on the web, and then see what I can find out about it. If you click on details, you can see additional pieces of information just by expanding under System. Performance monitor is very similar to a resource monitor, except for it will monitor a whole lot more things. So it will even monitor software, it will monitor third-party applications, lots of different things that you can add in. And to add those in, you would just click on the plus, and then you take a look at all these different counters. There's literally hundreds of different counters that you can add in. I'll go to where it says server, and I'll add those in. Click OK. And then you can see all the different types of monitors here at the bottom, and then a graphical representation here in this main section. Now, if you don't see a lot going on, it may mean that this is not a particular issue you need to be worried about. If it's spiked at 100%, then that might be something you need to look at more closely. If I go into Device Manager, this will tell me if any devices are not working properly. So if there are devices that are broken or the driver didn't load properly, then it will show up here as a circle with a down arrow. But in this case, you see, I don't have any issues with any of my hardware, so I'm in good shape. However, I can do things like right-click and update some of these different drivers. So for instance, I can go to the disk drive, I can right-click and choose to update the driver. I can either download a driver from the internet or just get a local driver from the operating system. And Windows updates will also do something similar. If I go into disk management, here I can see a list of all the disks that I have in my computer. And if I'd like to, if I could see some disks that are not being used, I can go ahead and use those. So I'll, for instance, right click on this disk and choose to initialize it. And I'm just going to go ahead and initialize all three of those disks that aren't being used. And then you can now see them online. So I can say, hey, I have drives in here, but they're not in use. Well, it's because they haven't been initialized and the volume hasn't been created. So I'll create a volume. It'll be the F drive. I'll choose all the defaults. And now I have a new F drive disk. And I can see that if I go into File Explorer. And there's my new F drive that I can start using. If issues become obvious while checking the computer for problems using these utilities, then you'll have a good idea if this is something that can be fixed remotely or if parts or replacement is required.